Hi, I'm Joy Loverde, the author of the Complete Eldercare Planner. I'm here with Mike Good. After 20 years in a high-tech industry, Mike Good left an engineering career to give back to his community. And so this website, Together in This, was born. Thank you for joining me in learning more about Mike and his vision for Together in This. So Mike, good to see you. You said earlier on that as you began to do your homework and your research about dementia and family caregiving, there were a couple of surprises, and your research showed you some very different things and you were surprised. What were some of those findings?
Thanks, Joy. It's my pleasure and an honor to have this conversation with you. As you mentioned, I came from an engineering career where for 20 years I went to the same job every day and was kind of sheltered behind four walls from my community, and didn't realize that how many families out there are in a caregiving situation for family members. And then when you focus on the number of families that are living with Alzheimer's or another dementia, it's quite staggering. Now, Alzheimer's, and what I didn't understand, and I fell in this same misconception that Alzheimer's is just like senility and an old person's disease, but it's not a caregiving situation that a family can get in and get out of, kind of like when someone breaks a hip or something and they recover. It can, and hopefully does, last for decades. And I wasn't aware of this, and the issues are that the longer it lasts, the more complex the situation comes, the more of an emotional and physical drain it is on families. And unfortunately, it's my belief that the vast majority of people just really underestimate the demands of caring for someone with Alzheimer's. So those impressions are really what hit me in the beginning.
When you think about family caregivers and all of the trials that they're going through, what specifically keeps you awake at night?
Yeah, well, recently the World Alzheimer's Report came out and said that there's a new case of Alzheimer's or dementia worldwide every 3 seconds. That means, and there's actually 47 million people living with dementia. 47 million people, 47 million caregivers and families who are potentially underestimating the complexity of this disease, basically because they just have no familiarity with it, much like I didn't. And most doctors, they diagnose it and then they just kind of send you on your way and tell you, oh, call the Alzheimer's Association. So and then what really keeps me up is those numbers are really huge and are expected to double every 20 years. 47 million becomes nearly 100 million in 20 years. But when you attend a support group, or you kind of look at the numbers of people on social media who are reaching out to get help from other people, I would bet, back of the napkin calculation, that it's less than 5% of the total number of people, but I would really say it's probably less than 1% of all people actually reach out to get help. And what really keeps me up at night is, how do we reach them? How do we empower them to know what they don't know they need to know? And that's the struggle I have and lose sleep over.
Thanks, Mike. How do you plan to have your website Together in This motivate family caregivers?
Yeah, it's a tough call there, but I continue to emphasize being proactive and fighting back against the disease. Now, if they have found Together in This, that means they're already searching for answers and support, which is great. So it's important that I communicate to them in an easy to understand format, but also be firm enough so that they know that this is not an easy situation to be in. There's not a time for me to be candy coating it and trying to help them be proactive. Now, one way I do this is when people subscribe to my free introductory guide to Alzheimer's, they not only get an easy to follow document to help them take action and start feeling success, which is very important, but they also get an informative article about every 10 days that again is intended to empower them by opening their eyes to the challenges they may face and help them just be aware while providing them guidance. Another way I like to try to help motivate families is by sharing examples of how people living with dementia can live active and positive lives. And in fact, I've already interviewed 5 such people, and those interviews were published on mariaschreiber.com.
Mike, that's fabulous. So, you're taking on quite an undertaking. So what inspires you, and why does it inspire you?
Yeah, it's there's a lot of kind of growth going on within myself here, and every time I meet a caregiver in person or I read their struggles online, I'm more motivated to help. For instance, just last week I attended an event where there were some caregivers there who had cared for their spouses who have since passed on, but they cared for those loved ones for 10 to 15 years. And that's a long time. Like I mentioned before, it lasts for decades sometimes. And hearing their stories and seeing how they're advocating now and giving back, it really touches me and inspires me. But I can't. My mind always turns to one story, and I read on Facebook where a daughter is caring for her dad, and now this is a guy who's maintained their home for decades. He's been the provider. He's made sure that house is provide safety and for their family. And one day she had to literally prevent him from cutting through a live electrical cable, which for some reason us guys, we want to do if we have dementia. It's a very common thing. But then the next day she said he's outside cutting up a tree with a chainsaw. So if you can imagine, here's this guy with dementia, cutting through a live electrical cable nearly, outside running a chainsaw, but he's following his instincts because he's got purpose. So what inspires me is to help people understand how to handle those situations.
Is there a particular accomplishment that you're very proud of when it comes to your website, Together in This?
It's not really one particular accomplishment, but there is one thing that does resonate with me, and that's when a caregiver tells me that something I've done has helped them ease their situation. That's a really good feeling for me, and that's what, kind of back to what inspires me. It's kind of the same thing, but that's what I'm proud of. And along those lines, I just recently published a free guide on how to adapt the home for a person with Alzheimer's, and the feedback has been incredible from caregivers and professionals. So I'm proud of that, because knowing that that guide is making a difference, that's what it's all about, and that's what I'm really proud of.
It's really great. It's a good feeling. How deep is this issue of young onset dementia?
Yeah, young onset dementia. It's also, you hear it referred to as early onset, and that's basically anybody under 65 years of age. Now that's people in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, and you'll hear a rare instance of someone in their 30s, but it happens. And the estimates are that 2 to 8% of all people with dementia are in this category. So if you just said 5% of that 47 million, that's like 2.3 million people worldwide under 65 living with this. Now, the struggles they have are because they're younger. They're often, it takes forever to get diagnosed because it's an old person's disease, which it's not. People don't believe it because they see a young, vibrant person. And we have to remember that, people are working into their 70s nowadays. So these people are often still employed, raising children, and now they're going to experience a loss of income and purpose. But those of us in the dementia care community, we know that the best medicine, often is staying active. And so better employment initiatives, the employer is actually taking a stand and helping these people, much like they do parents or new parents, if you will, or helping them continue to contribute at their job would be really beneficial for this. And Also, I kind of mentioned I interview people. So the 5 people I interviewed, in fact, were all diagnosed with young onset dementia. And the commonality they have is that they stay active, they share their diagnosis, and that allows family and friends around them to help them. And it also helps knock down the stigmas and the social misconceptions.
If you and I were sitting here a year from now celebrating what a fabulous year you have, what did you accomplish?
Well, you know, for me, success is all about helping that family caregiver through their situation. And I'm going to continue to achieve this by building relationships with other dementia care experts and helping them discover ways to help these millions of families that are impacted by the disease. So, you know, basically I'm going to continue to be that liaison between these dementia care experts and the family members. And one of my main goals for this next year is to continue to address 8 areas of need that I've identified. And those include things such as caregiver health, legal, financial, long-term placement, etc. By getting experts that are from those areas in front of the caregivers to help ease their situation. So along those lines, we're going to continue to expand upon together in this online training programs that we're doing and resources. Those are key to my success over the next year.
Mike, I just have one more question. Do you have any advice for someone who is just diagnosed with dementia?
Yeah, that's a great question. The first thing that happens, you know, initially when someone's initially diagnosed, it's like getting punched in the gut multiple times. It just takes the air out of them because it is, you know, it is a terminal illness, and there are so many misconceptions. So the main thing for them to do is to realize that there are millions of people, such as these that we've kind of talked about, that are fighting back and living a good and positive life. But you have to put processes in place and share your diagnosis. If you don't share your diagnosis, then nobody can help you and you'll become isolated. So, you know, start self-educating, get on Facebook and join some of the groups that have people with dementia on it, and you know, stay positive and fight back.
Thank you, Mike. And I hope everyone who has watched this video will come back again and see the other videos that Mike has in store for you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Joy.